So in a previous video, I argued that the many words interpretation doesn't make any sense because it makes it the case that consciousness doesn't even get to come along for the ride, that intention doesn't carry over to action. And I thought I should make a video to explain what is my alternative to the many words interpretation in explaining quantum field theory, the observer effect, and superposition. Okay, some of this will be familiar to you if you are aware of what other people have said, but some of it is new, so pay attention. You haven't heard this, I think you haven't heard this thing before, not in its entirety. But I can't just jump into it. I have to begin with the metaphysics. What am I arguing? What are my axioms? So my axioms aren't that the body produces consciousness or something of that. No, actually, what I'm arguing is that experience, not consciousness, is fundamental. That nothing produces it, not the body, not the physical world, not physical processes. That it produces itself. There's another axiom that rejects solipsism. These are the metaphysical axioms of this theory. And what follows from that is that, there are a few things. One is that experiences must be a simple element because it's fundamental. And it also has to be the case that the only time that we can ever talk about is experiential time. Time is experiential time. There is no other type of time. And experience is the thing that changes. It's not the objective reality that exists irrespective of experience that changes. It's only experience that changes. That's according to this theory. So that's according with the axioms. So what we call the physical wakeful world, space-time, all that exists only as the experiential movement of perceiving it and understanding what happens there. So there is no physical world existing irrespective of whatever it is perceived. Not the physical world, at least not the objective physical world, not the physical world as we know it, the wakeful physical world, not the space-time. There is an objective substrate, there is, but that objective substrate doesn't look anything like or has much relation with or much necessary relation with the physical world the world in physics, the world that we measure, the empirical world. That is not the objective substrate. The objective substrate is the thing that experience reflects on. It inspires, in a way, what experience perceives, but it is experience eventually that attributes meaning to the thing that to the way it reflects on it. In analogy, you can think of it like in a computer game. So in a computer game, you have the game world, you have treasure chests, you have weapons, you have foes, and all of these exist in your perception while playing the game. But as far as what is actually happening in the computer, well, that's just bits and processing of bits, and that happens without having any definitely not awareness, but any necessary relation with what I perceive from it. So that would be the objective substrate, like bits turning on and off, depending on what experience reflects on. And the theory argues that experience necessarily is causally independent, therefore, because it's fundamental, therefore it has a freedom to choose. But what does it choose from? It chooses from these allegorical, metaphorical bits of the computer, of the objective substrate to reflect on, and from that it extracts a meaning according to whatever it wants. It's not embedded in the objective substrate, the meaning itself, the semantics. So how does that help with quantum field theory, the observer effect, and superposition? Okay, so the thing to understand about this reality that we perceive is that to be perceivable, it the reality that you perceive must make sense. If it doesn't make sense, experience can't follow. It can't follow the experiential movement that it is. Therefore, the only viable options for experience to perceive are consistent realities. It's not because the consistency is an objective subject. The consistency comes from experience itself, from what it can follow, from what the experiential movements that it can follow. And when you're talking about superposition, you're not talking about a nonsensical world where multiple things exist, and you're not talking about a meta world where all the possible options exist at once. What a superposition shows is that there are degrees of freedom that experience can choose from different perceived, consistent physical wakeful worlds, versions of space-time, and that it makes a choice from that. But this is just potential. Experience makes a choice on to migrate, to change to one of them at a time. So there is no this meta world where all the options exist. Only one are taken. Only one option is taken, and that's the option that experience chooses. Now I'm saying experience. This is not consciousness. I'll come back to that. So when I make a measurement, or let's say in the double slit experiment, and I check through which slit a particle passed, I make it the case that for my reality to remain consistent, it has to be the case that the particle will continue from where I measured it in a billiard ball type of trajectory. That's because I measured it. That's I make it necessary for my reality to conform with this constraint. When I don't measure, there's no such constraint, and it can appear as a wave. Why wave? Reasons, not relevant to this case. So this is why the measurement changes the reality we perceive. But that's of course doesn't make sense because, because if you reject solipsism, if you reject the possibility that only exists, then what happens about other experiential agents that choose differently? I choose to make a measurement, they choose to not. And so we live in two realities, one in which a particle moved as a billiard ball, and one as it moved like a wave. How we can reconcile that? Of course, that's a small particle is a small thing, but what we've connected to the Schrodinger's cat experiment, where the state of the way the particle progressed will affect the life of a cat. If it's a particle, then let's say it kills the cat. If it's wave, the cat is released. So then you have like a superposition of the state of the cat. So what happens? So first, the theory says that if experience is fundamental, then the same way the body, the physical, can produce experience, it can end experience. So the whole question about living or dead cats becomes less important. I won't deal with that, but it's not different from the rest of the question. So what happens about different accounts of reality? So what the theory argues is that there's no problem with having different accounts different perspectives over the objective subjects, so long as we don't meet. It's only when we meet that reconciliation is necessary, and the theory argues reconciliation happens. The set of bits that I reflect on cohere with the set of bits that you reflect on. But now you'd say, okay, but what about my memory? I clearly remember I made a measurement, and you remember that you didn't. So what happens? So the theory says your memories are part of the objective subject that you reflect on. They are not experience. And when we cohere, our memories will change, because our memories are physical. The physical brain is the custodian of our memories. So for that reason, the theory argues that you shouldn't talk about consciousness, because consciousness merges experience and memories, and therefore it's not fundamental. You should talk about experience, the sense of being. So this is, and the reason we can reconcile is because in all cases it's just experience perceiving a substrate, and the same way the reality I perceive is coherent with the reality I perceive a second later. The reality I perceive must be coherent with the reality you perceive in a different body. So this is not dualism, because there's no universe. This is not block universe, because there's no universe. This is not physicalism. This is not panpsychism, because it's not experience is not a property of the perception. It's a new thing.